I saw Matlock.
Only you would refer to Andy Griffith as Matlock.
Well, I don't want to get too arcane. Yeah, his real name's Andy Griffith, but now he calls himself Ben Matlock.
Where'd you bump into him at?
He was at the airport at the LAX.
You're kidding me. Now that would be a thrill for me.
Oh man, it was incredible because I grew up watching the Andy Griffith Show, and then later when he changed his name to Ben Matlock.
Yeah.
So,
Norman, what do you got planned today? What are you going to do?
Well, I was going to tell you my Matlock story, but
No, go ahead. Sorry, I've got time. Go ahead. Recount. I thought you had to go. Go ahead.
No, I remember I was telling you about how I met Andy Griffith.
Yes.
So he's reading this big book,
Oh, right,
so
that's it.
I say I'll sidle up beside him and pretend to read a big book myself, and then we'll get in a discussion, right? Because I didn't want to just bug him,
That's how you meet people.
And I was hoping maybe he'd, by some crazy chance, maybe recognize me or something. So I stand beside him, and he's reading and everything like that, and I'm talking to him and everything. Anyways, turns out the guy's not Andy Griffith. Just an old man. So now I'm just talking to an old man who clearly is always mistaken for Andy Griffith, but uses it, because I'm like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and who would talk to an 85-year-old man? So this guy's just milking it,
Oh, Norman, I love you. I'll talk at you down the road. The Dennis Miller Show.
You're in the middle of your big promotional tour for Sports Show.
Yeah. I was on Letterman. Who's better than Letterman, right?
Nobody.
And no, I didn't mean that.
I know. I agree with you. Nobody.
No, they
is.
think I'm making a joke, but no, of course we love.
Of course,
we grew up on
That's
Letterman.
why we want to do this.
Yeah,
stuff,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
I don't want to do it, but
Well, that's why we've agreed to do it.
yeah. But what's awesome is you get to meet guys, right? So I was on Letterman. I met Willie Nelson is one of my heroes because I love country western music, and my buddy Billy Joe Shaver is buddies with Willie. So when I was at Letterman last week, I was like, I gotta go talk to Willie,
Yeah.
So then the guy that's the segment producer is like, hey, Nora Jones is with him, I don't know who that is. But they, how you get old legends to sing with some young
Right.
person?
Yeah.
So I go, okay, whatever. So he goes, yeah, but she'll be there. Don't forget to say anything. I go, all right. So I go down, and there's Willie Nelson. I'm like, oh my God, we're telling all these stories and everything. And then there's a lady standing beside him, So then he hits me like this, I go, ah? And then I remember, I go, Nora Ephron. Oh. And then I go, Nora Jones. I said Nora Jones after, but I said Nora Ephron because, here's the thing. When you say Nora fast, it's hard not to say Ephron right after.
It's one of the hardest things you could ever do in your life.
You like Rickles, right?
I love Rickles. Yeah.
I did a movie with Rickles, right? So it's so awesome.
Dirty Work, right?
Dirty Work, yeah. So it's so awesome. I like it. So it's so awesome, and so he couldn't remember now. He couldn't remember any lines, So I'd go I write something that I thought sounded like Rickles. I go, hey, say Don, say this to Artie Lang. Say Baskin Robbins called me today, and they're down to 3 flavors. So then he goes, look at you. He goes, Baskins and Johnson called me today. He goes, and you know what they told me? They told me. You ate all their ice cream. All the ice cream. Tubs and tubs of ice cream. And now, they don't. It's 45 minutes. But this is the funniest, man.
You don't give Don Rickles lines.
I tell you, man.
You let him come up with his own.
You gotta let him go.
Yeah, that's right.
But Rickles, man, he's the real deal.
He's the best. Yeah.
He's the funniest guy. And so that week, Sinatra was on his deathbed.
Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra, Rickles', close friend.
Sure.
So at lunch, I was like, people were like, should we mention Sinatra? I don't think we should mention it. Bum him out. But then I said, I don't want to ask him. So I said, hey, Frank, hey, Don, have you talked to Frank lately? And he goes, yeah, I saw him last week. There was a lot of this. Guy died 4 days later. And then I said, oh. And he goes, yeah. He goes, it's a lot of me with my head 2 inches from Frank's face going, "I'm not Barbara."
Well, Frank wouldn't have wanted it any other way, I have a feeling.
That's right. One more thing about your my impression of you that I just recalled.
What?
I had a chance to meet Johnny Carson because of that impression. Sudden thought, when did sugar diabetes become plain old diabetes?
How so?
Because Johnny Carson phoned me and he said he loves Larry King and every day he reads the News and Views, which was the impression I did was your News and Views in USA Today. So I had a chance to meet Johnny Carson, which I didn't take.
Why?
He would tell me stories, he could tell me stories about everybody, that existed ever in life in show business. And then I'd have to go, did you ever meet Chris Kattan? I wouldn't have anything to give back.
But he wanted to meet Norm, you missed it.
I should have done it.
You're weird, Norm.
I met guys, though. I did an impression of you on Saturday Night Live, your King's Things, bulletin points, and so I did a parody of that on SNL. And I only had to slightly magnify it. This is News and Views. Here's my 2 cents, gang. If you only see one film the rest of your life, it should be Mickey Blue Eyes. I get a call from Johnny Carson, and he wants to meet with me at his office. So I go to his office, it's just me and him. And he pulls out a whole bunch of USA Today's clips, of your column. And he starts reading them. He goes, "Here, you take some, I'll take some, we'll read them."
Just in the office?
Yeah, just me and him in the office, both of us doing Larry King impressions.
You do a lot of work for charity, Norman, in the sense that you'll go on TV shows for charity. You did, didn't you do a Celebrity Millionaire or something like that? Yeah. And how did you do on that? Did you win money?
Yeah.
No,
I did. The charities did.
You're not the celebrity?
The charities did.
But you were the celebrity on Millionaire.
Yeah, do you remember leukemia?
Yeah.
My money that pushed it over doesn't exist anymore.
You got rid of it.
I got rid of it.
No, you went on Millionaire with Regis, right?
Yeah.
And Regis asked you questions.
Yeah.
And then you answered up to, do I have this right? $500,000 worth of questions. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, he won $500,000.
Brainiac.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're pretty smart. $500,000 he got up to. That's pretty good.
Norm's a smart motherfucker.
But I'm not anywhere close to Brainiac.
Well, Brainiac, of course, was invented on Krypton. He's a supercomputer. But
yeah.
I don't say literally.
I was saying, you're comparing me. That's high praise. Because Brainiac, you could tell even from his head how smart he was.
And he had tubes coming out of his head.
I know, man.
Norm picked Paul Newman's charity because Norm wanted to meet Paul Newman.
Yeah. Is that true?
Yeah.
So you gave to his salad dressing empire kind
and
of thing?
also, it is a great
The hole in
cause.
the wall.
The hole in the wall game.
How long ago was this? A couple of years ago?
Yeah.
So Paul Newman
26 years ago.
So did Paul Newman call you personally and say to you, "Hey"?
No, he wrote a letter.
Did he?
Yeah.
Look at you, $500,000 contribution.
Yeah, and I could have gone to meet him, but then I was too afraid.
What do you mean you were afraid?
Well, and like it seems like a good idea, but then when it comes down to it, it's just you and Paul Newman.
Yeah, you don't know what
in
to
a
say.
room. Yeah, and then you got no stories. Like what am I gonna say? Hey man, one time Will Ferrell was.
Rob Schneider and Football Williams. I'm sure you'd love him.
You know him at all? Do you know anyone that I'm talking about? Do you know any entertainers I know?
That was a great story about you and Redford.
Yeah.
Listen, me and Artie Lang.
In other words.
So that was Robert Shaw, huh? Hey, fucking Bud Friedman's backstage with me. This guy's a character.
What you're saying is Paul Newman wrote you a letter and said, "Why don't you come out to my Paul Newman ranch?
Yeah.
And hang out with me."
Yeah.
So
but
I can
plus,
get to know
I
you.
kind of got the assumption that it would not be just me and Paul Newman. I suddenly had a fucking vision that it might be me, Paul Newman, and very sick children.
Oh, God.
So then it didn't become as appealing.
Well, you know what? Gary actually went to Paul Newman's house. Papa Booey went to Paul
He did?
Newman's. Yes. He was there for some charity event.
Oh, not to
I think
harass him.
it was a political thing.
A political thing.
Connecticut.
And Gary was in the barn. Paul Newman has a barn on his property.
Yeah.
And if he wants to meet with you, he meets with you in the barn where he has all his memorabilia from his. Well, now he's dead, but he had all his memorabilia in the barn.
Gary, go to
So
the barn.
You walk around and it's almost like a Paul Newman museum. You see
Yeah.
pictures, you see trophies, you see Academy Award, whatever, and then Paul Newman appears at the barn, and he speaks with you, and then he leaves. And that would have been it. I'm sure he wouldn't have
Oh,
hung
that
out with
would have
you.
been it. Oh, that's
Yeah.
his shtick he does. It's
I
his
think it's a
meet
shtick.
and greet.
It's
It's
a meet
like
and greet.
it's like Artie backstage at an Indian casino. I was going to be Martin Short's friend for a while. We were in negotiations.
Yeah, how'd that break down?
I don't know. I met him. He was fucking funny, and he made me laugh, and he was laughing at me and shit. So I said, "Hey, we should be friends and stuff." And he said, "Yeah, well, let's be friends." You go to a cottage, and I was like, "Ah, fuck! I'd have to go to a cottage, you know." And then so it
Talked you out of it.
never caught on because the cottage was in my head and shit.
What do you
but
mean
still,
the
I would have liked,
cottage?
that guy would be cool to
I
fucking
know.
hang out
But
with.
what do you
I
mean
met him.
that
He's
would be a good
hilarious.
But
friend
then
for you?
going to a cottage, you understand?
I don't want to go to a cottage.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem
All of
with
a
you.
sudden, you're going on a cottage on a plane.
But
You
that's
go,
the problem.
Maybe I
Norm,
shouldn't have done this.
Norm,
What?
that's the problem
What's
with
that?
you. So if someone suggests something right away, it's not
Too guarded. I know what you're
it's
saying.
not too. It's not cool enough for you. Where would
They're
you
not
go
cool
with Martin
enough.
Short?
I think
Martin Short says, "Let's go to a cottage
No, I'm
and
not
hang
saying
out."
that. I'm
Yeah.
saying I think you're right when I said I'm too guarded. Like
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
don't wanna
willing
be-
to do things.
You don't want to be trapped in a cottage with Martin Short. The
No, I would
idea,
no, I love
the
that
idea
part.
of being friends with Martin Short is fun. The idea of being in a cottage with Martin Short and then having the pressure to talk and to
Yeah.
interact
Yeah.
with one another.
Yeah.
I understand. I'm the
Yeah.
same way.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work out for you,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't work out for me either.
But you go on that vacation.
But maybe in
with,
another lifetime.
yeah.
When it comes to my sports.
Who's your favorite?
My favorite sportscaster of all time?
Yep.
It would be a tie. It would be a tie between Marv Albert and Howard Cosell.
You did Harry Carey impersonation. Did you do Cosell? Did you ever do?
One time I met Cosell when I was a boy, and I was struck by his honest. Oh, here's a funny Cosell thing. I was watching Monday Night Baseball once. You probably remember when this happened. Dave Winfield hit the pigeon.
The seagull in Toronto.
Seagull.
Yeah.
Yeah, he killed the seagull in
Yeah.
practice the day before. So then they used to have Monday Night Baseball, right, with Cosell and Keith Jackson.
Yeah.
And so Cosell would do those great cold openings, and he goes, they show like a picture of Winfield. He had killed the bird the day before. And then Cosell goes, that man, Dave Winfield, last night. What is that? He goes, last night, he was 2 for 3 with 4 hits, 3 RBIs, and 1 BIRD. Tonight, he proves that diamonds are not a gull's best friend. Tonight, he would always, like, right after his joke, yell tonight.
Once you get started with
But he came. This is my story about it. When I was in Toronto, I was a little young boy, and he was coming out of a hotel, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's Howard Cosell." So at Toronto at the time, it was mid-season, and Montreal and Toronto were both leading their league. Very, very strange. And so we were all excited about Toronto. We said, and we were just kids, and nobody else was around. We said, Howard, how do you think Toronto is going to do this year? And he just walked by us, and he goes, frankly, I like Baltimore. Hey, Dan, I heard you old boys talking about Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd share a tale about him with you.
Okay.
I went to see him at here in Los Angeles with because Merle Haggard was opening for him,
Okay.
and I'm just an old chunk of coal, and I like Merle, so I was there for Merle, but I stayed for Bob Dylan, and he was kind of a. It was like you were saying, you couldn't understand what songs he was singing, and but anyways, halfway through the concert, all of a sudden, because he doesn't talk to the audience or something, all of a sudden he started talking to the audience, and he said, Ringo, 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 about 45 times. So everyone was sort of in shock. And finally, a light went into the audience, and it was Ringo Starr was sitting there with some lady. And then he's all uncomfortable. He was like, Ringo. So he said it about 12 more times.
Did you meet him?
Bob Dylan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I met him. What happened was, I was going to finish my Ringo story.
Oh, I'm sorry, Norm.
That.
I'm sorry. Ringo.
Ringo. So anyways, he said, Ringo, like a whole bunch of times. And then he said, any songs you want to hear, Ringo? And then Ringo Starr said, I don't know. Do you know any Bob Dylan songs?
Do I?
For this story?
Yeah.
Yeah, so name one.
Tangled Up in Blue.
Yeah, so he said, Ringo goes, well, how about Tangled Up in Blue? He goes, I already did that one.
He just didn't understand that he was doing Tangled Up in Blue.
No one understood anything. But, yeah, I did meet him, but I don't know him because I'm into country. I'm into outlaw country. So I was there for Merle.
Yeah, I like Merle.
You like Merle?
Yeah. I like Waylon.
Oh, God, you like all the guys I like. My best friend is Billy Joe Shaver. He wrote Honky Tonk Heroes for all those boys. And, Waylon, Willie.
And the boys.
All those boys. There's some new guys on the horizon. There's Hank the Third. But most of this country has turned into stuff Michael Sam would listen to.
Well, careful here.
What? No, I mean, I enjoy seeing a guy kissing another guy, as much as the next feller. But I'm just glad he wasn't picked in the first round.
You're not sure what would happen?
Well, it may have been full-on insertion.